Let me give you guys this gist. My grandfather used his children for ritual, including my dad. My name is Daniel, and this is my story. I was 10 when I asked my mother how my father died. She shouted at me and told me to go and read my books. At first, I thought she was protecting herself from painful memories, but I was wrong. She was protecting me. My father died when he was 32. According to everyone, he suddenly became sick. Then one day, he started screaming in his sleep. A week later he died. Years passed. I turned 18. One evening, I overheard my mother crying. She thought I was asleep. I heard her speaking to my aunt. "Your father killed my husband. He killed 3 of his children. God will punish him." My whole body froze. I stopped breathing. I couldn't believe that my father was killed by his own father. I went back to my room and sat down on my bed. I couldn't sleep when night reached. The next morning, I confronted my mother. She slapped me instantly, then tears filled her eyes immediately. Then she hugged me tightly, and then she told me the truth that my grandfather was a ritualist. I couldn't believe how my grandfather, the well-respected man in the village, was a ritualist. But my mother was crying so hard. She told me that before I was born, my grandfather was very poor and providing for his family was very difficult. One day, he disappeared for almost a month. When he returned, everything changed. Money came. Nobody knew how and nobody asked. At first, life became sweet. My grandfather's children attended good schools. My grandmother became famous. Everyone admired the family. Until strange things started happening. The eldest daughter died. She was 25. She slept and never woke up. 4 years later, the second child died. He collapsed while eating dinner. The villagers whispered. But my grandfather remained very calm. 5 years later, my father died. He was the third child. Days before his death, he became restless. He stopped eating and he stopped smiling. One midnight, my father woke up screaming. My mother was terrified, so he ran outside for help. Guess who arrived first? My grandfather. He entered the room, and before he closed the door, he ordered my mother not to open the door, and he stayed alone with my father for almost an hour. Nobody knows what was happening inside. When the door opened, my father was silently lying down on his bed. 7 days later, he died. My mother wanted an autopsy, but my grandfather refused. He paid for a quick burial. Everything happened so fast and everyone moved on except my mother. She told me that she had a dream one night that it was my grandfather that used his children for ritual. She confronted my grandfather when she woke up and he told her the truth, but he also threatened her, his wife and his remaining children, that if they ever report to the king that he would kill them. I couldn't sleep after hearing this story from my mother. Then one midnight, I woke up around 2 a.m. because I was thirsty. As I walked past the backyard, on getting to the kitchen to drink water, I noticed a small light behind my grandfather's shrine. I went closer and hid behind a tree. I looked closely and saw that my grandfather was kneeling on the ground surrounded by candles. He was speaking in a language I didn't understand, and in front of him were 3 photographs of his remaining children. I almost screamed. Then all of a sudden, my grandfather stopped chanting. He slowly turned his head and looked directly at where I was hiding, and he gave me an evil smile. I ran and didn't stop until I reached my room. The next morning, when my grandfather called me, I was shaking. He sat on his big chair and stared at me for a long time. Then he smiled and said, "I know what you saw." My throat dried instantly and my grandfather continued, "I was young when I made the deal. I wanted wealth, respect, and was tired of poverty, but the price was my children's blood." Tears filled my eyes immediately and I insulted him, but he laughed and whispered, "You are the next." I ran home and told my mother everything. That same evening, we packed our things and planned to leave before sunrise. But around midnight, someone started knocking on our room door. My mother and I started trembling. Then we heard my grandfather calling my name and the knocks became louder. My mother and I started praying. We sprinkled olive oil, then the windows started shaking. The lights went off and we heard noise on the roof and something heavily was moving around. My mother held my hand so tight. Then 10 minutes later everywhere became completely silent. We didn't sleep that night. At sunrise we left the village forever. Months later, news reached us that my grandfather was dead. People said he died screaming and was begging for mercy. His face before burial was terrifying. His eyes were wide open and his mouth frozen in fear. After his burial, my grandmother called pastors to purify the land. She and her remaining children gave their life to Christ. My grandmother and her children left the village and went to another village because the shame was too much and they didn't have any money. But God came through for them. The village they relocated to gave them connections. They invested in palm oil business and within 1 month they became rich and they were able to afford whatever they want. Please, if you listen to this extent, kindly like, share, comment, and subscribe for more. Thank you.